We'll call this meeting of the City Planning Commission Tuesday, March 13th, after 6 o'clock, so we're going to call it to order. Ask that everybody would put your cell phones on silent so we won't be disturbed. Everybody up here put it on silent too. The approval of the minutes from the February 13, 2018 work session and regular meeting, and the approval of the minutes of the February 22nd, 2018 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Second? You second it, Charles? Okay, good. All in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed? Like sign.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I'll have to make a note that I was in attendance on February 13th,
okay,
but I was not have to abstain from the second meeting.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay.
Same for me. I was on the 13th, but not the 22nd.
Okay. Okay, old business. Don't have any old business on the agenda. New business. First application. Application number 18-20012, annexation request on Pine Log Road. What we normally do is ask for anybody who is in favor of this application to please step forward and discuss it, tell us about it, and then once we finish with the people on the approval side, we'll ask for anybody who has any opposition to it to come and appear also. So, do we have anybody here for this application 18-20012 in favor, who wants to speak in favor? Anybody who wants to speak in opposition? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in regards to application number 18-20012, tax parcel number 106-14-21-001, location on 1513 Pine Log Road, that we send this to council for consideration, and there are no possible conditional approvals.
Second.
And is there a second? Okay. Discussion. All in favor of the motion? Raise your hand. Opposed? Like sign. Okay. Application number 1, new business, is approved. Application number 2, number 18-5002.
Mr. Chairman, there was someone that stood up that was trying to get your attention.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, and to the Planning Commission, my name is Jeanette Ashley, and I live on Pine Log Road. I live next door to Mr. Jackson. We're not sure what's going on. We received a letter to attend, and I don't know why Mr. Jackson's not here. So I didn't vote either way because
well,
sure
Mr. Jackson has petitioned to be annexed into the city.
Okay.
That's all. Doesn't affect, I don't know if you're in the city now or not.
No, sir, we're in the county.
Okay, well, it doesn't affect you.
Well, when we moved to Aiken 6 years ago, I did call about the same concern. And what was said to me is that, well, it could happen where we could end up getting city service and not pay one utility bill. And she said, well, I don't remember the lady's name. She said, you don't want to upset your neighbors. And I didn't understand what that meant at that time. And so then when we received the letter, I sort of figured it had reference to eventually paying city tax or getting city privileges like everybody else, because the neighbors in front of us are city and we face them and we're county.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we notify, the statute requires and the code requires that when somebody petitions to be brought into the city, that we have to notify the surrounding landowners.
I mean,
so that's
I'm not
why
certain
you got
how this works, but I'm in agreement with that.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's why you got notice.
Okay.
And what this will allow you to do now, because you're next door neighbors with them, is if you would like to apply to be annexed into the city, you can do that as well.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, application number 2, number 18-5002, utilities request on Whiskey Road by Mr. Patel. Anybody want to speak in favor of this?
Before,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just make a quick clarification. So this is regarding the site access and condition 9, that potential condition 9 placed on this, and it's kind of an either or at the discretion of the board. The applicants proposed, as you see on the site plan in front of you, 3 different access points, one from South Meadows Drive, even with the cut that's there in the median, one from, a new one from Whiskey Road, and then a shared access with the adjacent office building on Whiskey Road. Our code says that generally you would be allowed for between 500 and 1,000 feet of linear frontage along an arterial to access points. So staff, when we looked at the ordinance, we were trying to differentiate between whether that access on South Meadows would be close enough to be considered an access point along with the shared drive to meet those 2 access point qualifications. Since then, we had a consult with our city traffic engineer, and her observation was that depending on whether whether there would be some storage concerns exiting onto South Meadows, whether it might be worth consideration of that second access from Whiskey that's being proposed central to the site. And if so, if the board were comfortable with that access point, then that would be the point that you would place a condition on there that it would be subject to review from SCDOT staff.
So your recommendation is that, that ingress and egress be restricted to the 2 access points, including the shared driveway to the south and the entrance drive from South Meadows Boulevard. And is that right?
That was our original, due to the low traffic volume generally associated with this type of use. That was staff's original stance, but our traffic engineer, I think, did bring up a good point that, for one thing, is the break in the median on South Meadows doesn't necessarily allow for a car stacking in between there. It is not quite wide enough for a car to kind of shelter in there very well. And so from that point, I think staff would be open to considering, the second. We think it's a valid point to consider the second access point in those terms.
Well, so, but I mean,
The second
your
direct Whiskey access point.
okay, so, but you're leaving number 9 on here. You're restricting it to 2. You're not adding another one, are you?
Correct. So I guess that would be the difference, is that it's an either or there, that you would be restricted to the 2 access points, or that the Whiskey Road access were to be coordinated with SCDOT staff. So there should be an or there, essentially where the semicolon is.
But does that mean that the board is supporting an access to Whiskey Road, or allowing that to occur if DOT agrees?
Correct.
I don't know if I agree with that.
This is out past Talitha Church Road.
It's pretty far out.
I know where it is.
Yeah.
I just,
Well, before we discuss it,
Okay.
is there anybody here wants to speak for it? Yes, sir. State your name and address.
My name is David Banks. I am the drawer of that picture, and also I'm representing the owner today. He couldn't make it. He apologized, and he had to fly to Texas for this is what he does for a living, so he's putting, building systems and facilities. I've done work in Aiken a pretty long time, and so I'm familiar with the landscaping and all that, and we're fine with that. Our big concern is the access point, and I'm kind of in disagreement with staff about the number of access points we are allowed to have on this property. The ordinance calls for the number that they say that we have to get to that third. It's kind of a weird site because it's on an arterial road and it's on a collector road. It's a corner lot. The arterial, he was correct, between 500 and 1,000, we are allowed 2 access points. And this frontage, I do have a blow-up of this plat to show you all the actual lengths of the properties. Yeah, if you don't mind passing out,
Or you can show it on there if you can.
Yeah, the Whiskey Road portion of this property is 701 feet. So by the code, we get two access points on Whiskey Road. On the portion of South Meadows, which is a collector road, it is 299.85 feet. And per the code, which I have here.
Well, let me, I don't want to interrupt.
We have two access.
I don't want to interrupt you here.
Yes.
But we are probably going to rely on our planning director's
Yeah.
recommendation. We're not going to argue with you at this point about, if you argue with them, that's fine. We're going to go, I think I speak generally for the board, we're not going to try to get into an analysis here of whether he's right or wrong.
Okay.
We're going to accept, for our purposes, we're going to accept that he's right.
Okay.
Okay?
Well.
Now, you can take that up with the city council, you know, we're a recommending body, and, but we're not going to second guess. We're not, he's an expert much more so than we are. We're not experts on this, so we're going to probably accept, I think, his recommendation and go with his, as far as whether he's right or wrong on that. You're going to have to take that up with the city.
Okay. I mean, it's a document presented to me which has been done in error, and I think y'all should know about it. So that's
Well, you
why.
disagree that you think you're entitled to 3 interests.
No, I think we're entitled to 4.
4, okay,
Yeah,
well.
no, I'm just telling you, that's what
Yeah.
that's what y'all's ordinance says.
Sure, sure, well.
But we don't want 4. To be honest with you, we care less about the other access, the common drive access. That was just put in for connectivity between properties, so somebody would not have to get on Whiskey Road.
Right, and we would.
I understand the need for that.
Yeah, we would accept that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, we meet all the DOT requirements for spacing. I will say that their traffic engineer is correct, that the South Meadows entrance during the 5 o'clock hour is not easy to get into. This is gonna make it worse. If y'all say put, 10 people coming to visit their parents, after work, they're gonna make that queue into South Meadows worse. They're not gonna drive all the way down to the chiropractor,
Plus, it's
700
being-
feet past the site, to turn around and come back.
It'll be difficult for anyone trying to get out of the parking lot too, and trying to leave. For example, if a nurse were getting off her shift, or a doctor were having to come in, or
Having to come down
emergency
South
vehicle.
Meadows, yes.
It'd
We
be
do not
difficult.
generate a lot of traffic. They are very small traffic generators, unfortunately.
Right, yeah, I wouldn't think so. So you're going to be able to turn right or left off of Whiskey, right?
Yeah, there's a two-way left-hand turn lane, suicide lane, whatever you want to call it, out in front. I mean, it's set up for this. That's why that is there, is to access left-hand turns into the site, into the development of this property. We could, my client could divide this property up into 5 lots, get a driveway on every one of them. And put a McDonald's. So,
Got anything, any questions of,
Yes. What type of lighting do you have planned for the parking lot?
we have not gotten that far. We do a site lighting plan. We look at, we keep it inside. We'll limit it to 3 candle power, or whatever it is at nighttime. We don't light up we close it, I think 9 o'clock. So we're not gonna be, flooding out Kmart parking lot type deal.
you have seen the conditions of approval that the planning director, planning department have recommended?
Yes, and I expected all of them except number 9. to be
Number 9 is the issue with you. And now, so if we say ingress and egress be restricted to the 2 access points, or access drives on Whiskey Road need to be coordinated with SCDOT, do you accept that? You do not accept that, right?
Well, it's the first part of that.
The 2 access points is where you're hanging up.
Yeah.
You're saying that ingress and egress should be at least 3. Is that right?
Oh, yes, per the code.
To which, per your interpretation of the code?
Yes.
And maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but that's, I understand what you're
Okay.
saying.
That's understandable.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Now's the time.
Are we going to modify that number 9? Want someone-
Well, we're going to talk about it. Okay, anybody else? That's good. Anybody else want to speak in favor of it? Or anybody want to speak in opposition to it? Yes, sir. One of y'all.
I just want to speak on.
Come up, state your name, please, and your address.
Sean Tolby. I live in South Meadows on Bainbridge Drive, which is on the back side of this. I just want to speak proposing the removal of the access from South Meadows based on the, like he spoke, the traffic leaving SRR, traveling down Whiskey Road. It's limited as it is to try to make a left-hand turn in. I mean, as is right now, there's a lot of times it backs up to almost Chucker Creek Road and that light. And if you, like you said, people trying to come after work, that 4 to 6 o'clock hour, you're gonna jam it up even more. And we also try, as a homeowner association, try to develop that road and keep it nice. And now you're gonna put a driveway right down the middle of our entryway.
Well, no, we're not dealing with that back in there, you know.
I'm not saying you're not, the developer is, not your, not you, but I'm just saying you control the access points, and that was the only thing.
Well, he has, look, he has a legal right to access. I mean,
Okay.
we to Whiskey Road, and we may not like it, you may get into some debate about it, but I think legally, he's got a legal right to access to Whiskey Road.
And we don't have an issue with Whiskey Road. We want the access to be on Whiskey Road. We want to remove we don't want the access to be on South Boundary, or excuse me, South Meadows.
And that's an issue you can take up with him.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm just saying that's part of the discussion that we just was having about the access points. So
you said something on here about magnolia trees. Are your magnolia trees run all down that drive?
that is correct.
Is that what you were saying? that
Yeah,
you
I mean,
developed it?
we spent quite a bit of money in landscaping to try to develop that driveway the whole way of South Meadows back. I mean, to keep the
South
landscape,
Meadows.
because that's our entryway, that's,
South Meadows Boulevard is what it's called
right,
on
right.
here, I guess.
So I'm sure the developer would do everything in his power to make sure that,
Yeah, I would think.
and like I said, it's a traffic issue for us to, like you can see, like, and you have, obviously, homes that are facing the back of it. Right. I live off that map. That was our only concern, was the access points.
Okay.
And the cut through and all that, and how that congestion of that area would be right there.
Well, it's probably going to get a little bit more congested, maybe, hopefully not a lot.
Right, but if you keep the access on Whiskey Road, you have a lane for them to be in. Here, you don't have a lane for them to be in. And it's already developed very little for the number of homes that's there, so. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, come on up.
Good evening. Mike Kellums. I live at 448 Barrel Drive. Like the gentleman just spoke in front of me as well, the access road there coming into South Meadows, as well as, I do want to make one correction here or point something out. You say that city fire protection is South Meadows, and South Meadows belongs to New Elton Fire District, as well as this parcel as it sits right now. Somerton Village on the corner is all in New Elton.
New Ellington, okay.
Yes, sir. So I guess the question also on that is the intent to annex this property in the future.
We sure about that fire district?
I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yes, sir.
That's what he
Thought we
said.
run it.
I'm the fire chief of New Elton.
Okay. I won't doubt you then.
You're probably right.
I was sitting here about a year ago when y'all was
Yeah, I
discussing
remember.
the annexation of Somerton Village.
Okay.
So, and now the Yes, sir, here about Cornerstone, that is correct. Across the street is Cornerstone, except for the last phase of Cornerstone belongs to New Ellington as well, where that parcel is. And years ago, the line actually cut across and split up some of South Meadows and split up Cornerstone. Mark Key and Chief Fromer was the chiefs at the time, and the agreement was decided there between those two chiefs to kind of square off the lines. And that's when New Ellington took in all of South Meadows, and Cornerstone become all of Aiken City, along with Me Ranchos and everything going up that way. I'm not sure exactly where that line come through at. So.
You're on the east side of Whiskey, kind of.
Yes, sir.
And the city of Aiken took the west side.
That's correct.
I remember there was some debate about it.
So our line actually on the east side comes all the way up just short of the hotel. There's Dr. Wyatt's office, and then there's a wooded lot still. That wooded lot is ours, and then the hotel picks up, and then becomes Aiken City.
The Comfort Inn and Suites?
Ma'am? The Comfort Inn and Suites, yes, ma'am, I think that's the name of it.
Wyatt's office is on y'all's.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
And if you're going southbound on 19, Me Ranchos and the entrance into Cornerstone, but the front parcel immediately right after, I can't think of the name of the street, they're going into Cornerstone, but that front parcel picks up New Ellington again coming south. So two things, there is, with the traffic there coming in and out, traffic can get backed up there in this time of day. It depends on what time you go look at it.
So this site would come under the New Ellington Fire?
Yes, sure. Yes, ma'am.
So in your opinion, you would like to see an entrance and egress where?
Off of Whiskey Road.
Off of Whiskey Road.
Well, I don't think,
two things there.
Better safety thing, too.
well, I don't think there's much debate. They're going to have at least one entrance off of Whiskey Road, is there?
Well, they don't know yet.
Are you talking about not having any entrance?
And the one entrance doesn't need to be the shared drive, because you coming in there, 50, 60,000 square feet building, we're going to be responding with our ladder truck most likely in that area. You're talking about tight turns and stuff coming in there, and just, so the one entrance that was closer to South Meadows Boulevard, this one right here, and that's that's the one that I would say would make sense coming into.
Yeah, that's what he's got on here.
Jack, I'm confused. Why is this before us if it's going to be, if this is coming into the city of Aiken, or if it would be property that's already in the city of Aiken, it would be under city of Aiken fire limits, not the New Ellington Fire Department. I mean, he's got.
This is city services, I assume water.
So that would be an annexation into the city of Aiken.
So no.
It would be that would be we would provide him water, and one of the conditions would be when annexation was possible, then he would have to agree to annex, right?
And I think, Bob, that was the same agreement years back with South Meadows, and maybe even the same. I know last year when Somerton Village, at that time it was called Talitha Oaks, I think it ended up changing names. But
it's in the city of Aiken, but it's covered by the New Ellington Fire Department?
No, it's not in the city. It's not in the city. This was requesting city services.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's right. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, yeah. Okay, anybody else in opposition? Okay, up to the commission. What do you got? What do you want? You want to discuss it? If we want to discuss it, we need to make a motion to suspend the rules while we discuss it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with respect to application number 18-50002, city services request for tax parcel number 123-20-01-03, I recommend that we send this to City Council for consideration, including any recommendations by staff.
Including the possible conditions 1 through 9?
Yes.
Or 1 through 10?
Yes.
And do you make any changes? Are you going to make in your motion any changes to 9?
That ingress and egress, which include the shared, taking out the semicolon and inserting the word "and," access drives on Whiskey Road will need to be coordinated with the SCDOT.
Okay. And, just so you're putting an and, that ingress and egress be restricted to the 2 access points, and access drives on Whiskey Road will need to be coordinated with SCDOT staff. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
All right. Discussion. Now, discussion.
We can change that. I want it to read right.
How does number 9?
I'm not sure about the restricted to.
Right, so I think you'd have to, so,
How would it read?
Include two access, that ingress and egress to the site, including access points of the shared driveway to the south and the entrance drive from South Meadows Boulevard, and any access to Whiskey Road be, in other words, they're going to have access to the 2 plus Whiskey Road.
okay. So, and then that third access would need to be
However that
coordinated with
comes out,
SCDOT.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, what DOT says and what the fire chief says might be two different things. I want the fire chief to be able to get his ladder truck, and this is an assisted living facility, 2 stories.
Right.
We definitely got to be able to get a ladder truck in there, so I don't know how that would need to be worded, but for public safety aspect and for the benefit of those residents, for the fire department to be able to get in there, they've got to have that, and I don't know what that
Well, it
access
just says that
is.
they're going to have to coordinate it with DOT.
But DOT might not
Pick up on that.
pick up on the fire department access. I want to make sure that we address that it is satisfactory maybe to the fire chief of the New Ellington Fire Department, if we could put that as a stipulation.
All right, so.
I agree.
I agree. The ingress and
Okay with that?
egress to the site, including the shared driveway to the south, will include a shared driveway to the south, the entrance drive from South Meadows, and, the word and access drive on Whiskey Road in order to facilitate the entrance of any fire and public safety vehicles.
Emergency vehicle.
And one or more access shall meet the requirements of New Ellington Fire Department ladder truck.
Just the New Ellington Fire Department.
Local AHJ.
Whatever you want. All right, wait a minute. All right, so we got a motion on the table and a second.
So we're gonna
Now, you're going to
amend-
amend the motion. Agreeable to amend it?
Bob's going to amend the motion.
Well, the only thing I want to add on 9, and with the approval of the New Ellington Fire Department.
And with,
Well, the only reason we want to, only way we want the New Ellington Fire Department in this is to approve the fact that you can get a ladder truck in there. We don't want to give them widespread
To approve.
disapproval.
Entrance and access and egress, that's all.
Access and emergency apparatus.
yeah,
Okay.
emergency vehicles and apparatus.
Yeah, limit it, okay. Are you agreeable to amending your motion to
I'm agreeable to.
reflect that? You got
I'm-
it?
I'm agreeable to
All right,
amend
how about the
motion.
second? Is that okay, Ryan?
Second.
Okay, further discussion, anybody?
Nope.
All right, everybody in favor of the motion as amended, raise your hand. Opposed, like sign? Okay, motion carries. All right, next item of business, application number 18-22003, concept plan request for attached single-family at Greer Court by Leon and Elizabeth L. Green. Anybody here to speak in favor of this concept plan request? Yes, sir. Come ahead.
I'm Leon Green, owner of the property, and, the concept plan is to build 8 single-family townhomes in 2 buildings on that property. This will be the last piece of property that's in that Town Creek development, which includes 2 medical buildings and 3 triplexes. So we'll finish out that particular development. The homes will be 2-story with, energy efficient, low maintenance, about 1,500 square feet, which will target price of about $150,000 to $170,000, which will appeal to the starter homes or the downsized type families in that particular price target range.
Okay. We have received information from the planning director regarding a possible problem with the width of the access street or drive not being big enough for, again, large public safety units or fire units to be able to get in there. Are you familiar with the problem that we're having?
With the staff. You know, the architect, I do have him here with the site planning, but I do not see how, you know, I'm not sure how big of a street access do you need to get in there?
The Public Safety Department recommended 24 feet.
So 24 feet wide and with a cul-de-sac at the end?
They did not mention requirement of a cul-de-sac.
And I agree, that makes the whole project really, I'm not sure it's impossible, but it certainly makes it tighter because of the setback sides.
We can look at 24 feet and see if that's a criteria. I'm sure that we can, even if it means we have to reduce the width of the two buildings by a foot or two, that would be, that would probably be acceptable to us. 24-foot driveway down with access to the garages off that would be acceptable. Is that my understanding?
Well, whatever the minimum standard would be, it talks about minimum road standards as well as minimum drive standards with a 90-degree parking requiring a 24-foot would be the waiver that we would be looking at granting.
All right. I think we can work with that.
Okay. Okay. You got anything else?
No.
Okay. Yes, sir.
On one of the pages where you say each unit will have a one-car garage and a driveway for parking for 2 additional cars. So 2 cars in the driveway, correct?
There is the driveway, the idea was that there'd be you could park 1 car in the garage and 1 car in the driveway.
Okay. And then you go on to say then additional guest parking places will be provided for each building. Where would that parking?
It would be at the end of this particular area here, that we would put some guest parking right here in this area.
So when you say guest parking, would it be paved, asphalt?
Yeah.
And I would be interested in seeing how would you put more than 3, maybe 4 cars down there, although you have eight buildings or 8 units?
Well, when we put in the expanded plan with a 24-foot driveway, we'll add those, see where those will fit in there, and it may be that, you may be right, I don't know. We haven't looked at that in a great deal of detail at this point.
And then how about your buffer between the road and the ones there on the right, from Town Creek to those? What is your proposed buffer? We have here that it would be, and Ryan, please correct me if I'm wrong, 15 feet, but it would be that would not include, that's to the property line, and then from the property line to the road itself, it would be approximately how many feet? Another 30 or
You're
something?
talking about the front setback along Town Creek?
Yes.
To the road? It seems like it's pretty close to, maybe probably a little over 30 to the actual road. It's a fairly wide right-of-way on Long Town Creek.
It says 8.5 feet.
That's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, you're showing 15 feet right away, distance between the actual looks like is that the driveway or is that the building there? Ryan, on that thing right there.
Property line?
It's 15 feet to the right of way. The road's actually out of here. There's probably 30 feet. There's probably another 30 feet to the road. Right. I don't know what would happen if you ever talked about 4-laning Town Creek Road, but
If needed.
Well, and see, that would end up just like Silver Bluff, where they're expanding that, and those roads are gonna be right in someone's backyard.
that's right. That's because of the, you know, the people are gonna be, gonna realize that their units are gonna, well, what is that? What is that right next to the 15-foot mark? Is that part of the building? Is that part of the drive? That's the back part of the building? Is that?
Back part of the building.
Okay.
Patio. Yeah, patio.
Well, they're gonna have to realize that they are 15 feet from the right-of-way there. So there's really not any room for a buffer, Bob, is there?
No, I'm just saying, it's a good point. Let that go to 4 lanes one day, and somebody's gonna have the
Well,
road
somebody, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's,
feet from their back door.
that's right. Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Green?
So, Jack, Chair, I want to make a point. So, in the back portion of that property, so the closest one, I guess furthest right towards Town Creek, would be actually 8.5 feet. So that's another waiver we would have to grant on this, per the notes on page 3.
We would have to.
Order of the covered patio closet to the adjacent residential property and backing up to Town Creek Road appears to have a separation of approximately 8.5 feet, not 15.
So
I'll read that.
So the requirement of and perhaps he could verify how close it gets there, but the requirements of a side setback is 10 feet to that side property line.
Okay.
So we just measured to a scaled drawing and estimated it being around 9 feet.
Gotcha.
Or 8.5 to 9 feet.
You put it to the minimum, so that's the 10 feet is what we got.
Well, yeah, we don't have to grant the waiver. I mean, we could say we want 10 feet.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly.
Yeah. That's the intent.
The intent would be that you would have the 10 feet there?
That we'd have the 10 feet, yes.
All right. Take that one out, please. Okay, any other questions of Mr. Green? Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Anybody want to speak in opposition to this proposal? Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Bill Busser. I live at 102 Savannah Drive, very close to this development. I don't think the should be approved with this concept plan. The many problems with the impact with public safety, street design standards, and setbacks from Town Creek Road for the right-of-way. If you're driving up Town Creek Road, you're going to see this whole complex setting out in the middle of nowhere. You know, it's going to be right up against the road, and everything else is set back. All of the houses along there are set back. So it's going to be an eyesore, plus a safety hazard. And I think that 8 units on 0.79 acres is very dense, and I think it's too dense.
Certainly dense, certainly dense. You're right about that. I don't know, what's your position on the safety? Why is the safety, assuming they have the requirement?
The whole thing with that being a lane, even if they widen it to 24 feet or 20 feet, whatever it is, you're still going to have a lot of traffic in and out of there. And if they allow one car in the garage and one on the driveway, somebody's going to be parking on the street, or they're going to be parking over in the office complex next door. If they set this up for first-time home buyers or seniors, you're going to they have 3 bedrooms, 3 baths in these units, 1,450 square feet, which is a very dense unit, and you're going to have a lot of children with the first-time owners, and with the seniors, you'll probably have guests, and they'll have guest people there, and I just think it's going to be a congested area. And if anybody parks on that street, they're not going to be able to get a fire truck down there or an emergency response vehicle.
Well, that was our concern early on. He says he can remedy that.
But that's going to be pushing everything out.
Well, we don't know how he would exactly remedy it. I don't know.
Right.
I can't explain that, but he says he can remedy that. He says he can meet the minimum requirements. But what about this? Suppose just hypothetically it was 2 units only. It was a total of 4 units rather than 8 units. Would that make any difference to you?
Well, I think the units out towards Town Creek are the main problem, because
I think so. Yeah,
it's just too dense, and I think that would be an eyesore as you're driving up Town Creek to have that whole building complex setting out there. They have a picture on the back that shows it in an open field, but when you put the roads real close to it, it doesn't look as appealing.
We noticed that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
David, I'm Lloyd Copenhaver, 238 Springwood Drive in Jim Lakes, neighbor of Mr. Busser. I agree with everything he said. And my basic concern, or maybe 3 basic concerns. First, as he said, if you just say over and over to yourself, 8 units on less than 8/10 of an acre, and that just seems tight. But if you actually drive out there, stop and look at the plot of ground and try and picture 2 buildings with 8 units, streets and driveways all in that area, it's hard to imagine it being in there. And then now we're talking about expanding the street to solve the safety problems that have come up. Basically, my contention is that this is not ready. It's certainly not ready to approve. In addition to the actual variances that are requested, the several variances that are requested in here, and those may get tighter if you're up against if you're a little bigger than you should be and you're going to widen the road. The whole thing is either going to get bigger, or you've got to change the basic design of the units to make them more compact. And there's some aspects of this that do meet the requirements, the formal requirements, but that I think require a little more investigation. There are several aspects of this that plans have not been submitted yet, the landscaping plans and various other things. Those need to be committed. There was not a formal report from public safety, which I think should be essential, especially with concerns we've expressed here. And I think they need to go back and try again, and I assume that would result in it coming back before this commission rather than going directly to city council. So those are my concerns.
Well, we have, we don't have unlimited options here. We can accept it as is, we can reject it in totality, we can accept it and add conditions to it. That's kind of where we are, right, Ron? That's our...
Right, so you'd be, you're making a recommendation either for or against to city council, and if your recommendation is in favor, then you would need to describe what waivers and conditions would be recommended to council.
I have another question on the developer.
Yes, go ahead. Mr. Green, would you mind stepping back, please, sir?
I just have a question about the open space.
Pardon me?
About the open space in lieu of a median, you said that there's going to be 54% open space. Where's this open space going to be if you're going to use that end space down there for parking, overflow parking?
Well, the open space, if we do some additional parking, that number on the open space will decrease.
But open space is, if it's parking, it's not considered open space, is it?
Correct, yeah, parking would be excluded from open space.
Yeah, parking would-
Yeah, I understand parking's not open space, yeah.
Right, so that's going to reduce the amount of open space that you have as well.
Correct.
So you're not meeting that condition either.
Well, the condition...
What is the condition? The condition's not 54%.
Well, this is what this says. If off-street parking and driveways are to be accessed directly from the primary street or drive, one of the following must be provided as determined by city council. A landscaped median of at least 20 feet in width, which of course you can't do that. Or open space in excess of the minimum of 20% required by 4.9.2D to be used as a recreation area. Well, if you're going to use that open space for parking, then it can't be used for recreation.
Well, not all that space will be parking, but we will definitely be more than the minimum of an open space. We will meet that criteria.
Okay.
You remember, you're only talking, like the one man said, you're only talking about an acre here. Really, about an acre.
Less than an acre.
Yeah.
Little less than an acre.
Mr. Green, how are you going to deal with the water runoff of the property? Is it,
The developer, not the developer, the contractor, which is Chris Gray at B&B Commercial, he's the one that actually did the development of the whole grading and the water thing, and that runoff plan was already approved by when the site was developed. So we're not modifying any of the existing runoffs. We're just going to enhance those.
but to answer my question tonight, you don't know where that water's going then? Because I don't have that in front of me either. I just would think you would know that. You don't know where that water's going to go. I mean, because we have water issues. We've been dealing in Gem Lakes, in other areas. I'm just concerned where the water's going, that's all.
There was it did have a runoff plan, and there are already collection basins on that property in which we will use for the runoff, which goes to the retention pond. Those are already in place. The site has been developed already. It has all the services, and all the runoff has already been installed.
Ryan, would that have to be modified or whatever based on a new property going in there, a new use? They'd have to determine whether or not, if he has a retention pond somewhere down, can it hold the new volume of water that this property is going to...
Right, it's like with any site plan, that would be assessed by the city engineer with development. So who's here if you have any questions for him. Approval of a concept plan doesn't get you out of the stormwater requirements. So, as any site plan came through along for this development, it was verified through that process with the city engineer.
Okay.
So the stormwater management The storm, to piggyback on Bob, the site has been developed with catch basins already installed?
That's correct.
So the catch basins will collect in the retention pond in the rear of the property?
It's already installed, and I assumed it was approved by the city because they came out and, before I bought the property, I was assured that, that everything was copacetic.
Its current zoning is office. Single-family attached development is permitted use within the office zoning district with an allowable density of 1 dwelling unit per 3,000 square feet. So you see, he is within the required zoning rules now. 1 dwelling unit per 3,000 square feet, so 8 dwelling units, 24,000 square feet, thereabouts. So you're within that rule. But we have, here's also, if you look, if the board looks at the possible conditions presented to us initially by the planning director, there's 3 of them there. There are no waivers under those 3. This blue sheet that was given to us talks about some waivers. We can approve it with the conditions on it with no waivers. We can disapprove it and recommend disapproval to the city council, or we can approve it with the conditions and make waivers. What's the pleasure of the council?
If you had all, if all the people had the chance to speak yet.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Green. Anybody else? Well, I didn't see any other hands about any other person opposing it. Yes, ma'am.
I was not prepared to talk tonight. My name is Peggy Neal at 215 Springwood Drive, Aiken, South Carolina. The only thing I want to implore you to do is if you drive over into that area, you'll see exactly what we've talked about. It's a very small space. I live on 0.9 acres, my house. I can't imagine that many places, that many people on that amount of land. Plus, as we move forward in Aiken, if you drive that area, we have about destroyed that corner of property over there. If you look at Dr. Carter's office on the corner, they did not look ahead. So now they're widening the road, and his office will be probably 15 feet from the road.
Probably.
I just think that it behooves you to look ahead, because we want growth in this. We approve growth, but we want it done in a way so that Aiken, on all parts, south, north, whatever part, looks appealing to people that are moving into our area. And doing this kind of thing, I don't think that fits the bill. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Gail Lofgren, and I live at 139 Gibbon Lane, which is directly behind this property. The detention facility that was never supposed to hold water is in my backyard. It's getting water. It may get more.
Now, Gibbon Lane is part of this development, or it's not at Jim Lakes, is it?
Sort of, kind of, but not really.
Not really. Not really. I don't think it's part of
It's
Jim.
directly across the street from Town Creek Baptist Church.
Okay.
And I own the road, okay? And
where is your house on there? And in relation to the retention pond?
In that triangle?
You said the pond is in your backyard. Are you right at the end of
That's
Gibbon?
me. That's me. Right.
And then that retention
That
pond is in?
triangle, that's 0.93 acres, including the road, which is also mine. And I've got a 2,400 square foot house. Okay, I've got a pool in the backyard, but not a huge amount of property. And what he's talking about is right there on the corner. I can't imagine 8 townhomes. I mean, I know it's 4 and 4 being squeezed in there. If they had kids, it wouldn't be in the yard. They'd be playing out in the parking lot. it's just an awful lot to try to squeeze in there.
Of course, you could put hundreds of people in an apartment house,
Guess you,
less than this, on an acre or less.
yeah. Guess
I'm
you-
not saying that's
Yeah.
zone, I don't
Right.
think that's zone for this,
It
but
just seems-
theoretically, you could.
Okay, and I don't know the rules and the laws, and I don't want to be coming across as just total and emotional, kind of like, nobody's not, got the right to do whatever they can do. It just seems like an awful lot to squeeze in there, and it backs right up to other people's backyards. It's just a lot to squeeze in. It really is.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, what do you think? Want to make a motion, want to move to suspend and discuss it? Somebody?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
On application 18-22-003, a concept plan for a plan approval request on tax parcel 106-18-19-014 on the applicant Leon C. and Elizabeth L. Green. I would make a motion that we decline their application and make a recommendation to council of the same based on the fact that, based on the plan's density, its safety, the application of 8 units, too many waivers for us to actually make this project work in this specific proposal.
second.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Got any comments? Feel any other way? Let's kick it around. Nobody? Okay. In favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed?
How did you vote, Chairman?
I voted with the
Okay, sorry, I
motion.
didn't look over fast enough.
I voted with the motion.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we have disposed of that one. We've got,
What happens to this now?
It goes on to city council.
it goes to our,
This goes to
it goes
city
to city
council with the
council with
planning commission
our recommendation not to approve.
Thank you. Always good to say that for the record.
All right, yeah, for the record. Okay, continuing new business. What about this, Ron? Do we have any issue, do we have to move and second and vote on these? Is
Correct,
that what we need to do?
I'll go ahead and kind of describe the three of these
Yeah, if you don't
together
mind.
as far as process. These are all text amendments to various ordinances. And so you would be a recommending body, and they would require 2 readings by city council for approval. So your first one here, item 3.4, came from the design review board. This is regarding the special tax assessment for rehabilitation of historic properties. What this essentially says, that the special tax assessment is that if somebody has a historic property and they spend in excess of 20% of the value of the property in rehabilitation and it's certified by the design review board, then it freezes the taxable valuation for a 10-year period. So essentially you're not getting penalized for improvements you're making to your property. What the design review board is essentially requesting here is to further clarify what makes an eligible expense, and in this case, what it's trying to prevent is, for instance, things like if you were to spend 20% of the valuation of the property solely on an accessory unit, for instance, that wouldn't be that wouldn't count toward your 20%, that it would have to involve at least 20% valuation to make to the actual historic portion of the property, and that can include making it livable and usable to current standards. So
I assume the reason they're asking for this is to try to clarify the definition of what they're going to be able to use as a cost.
That's correct.
It looks like it needs clarifying to me, but I don't know.
And now,
exactly.
quick question, is that 20% of the money that they're spending to fix it up, or is it 20% of the value of the home?
So it's the money, the valuation of improvements has to equal 20% of the current assessed value of the property. Correct.
So if you have a $100,000 property, your improvements have to be $20,000 or more.
Correct.
And this is a complicated process. They have to go by and get all this done pre-work.
Right.
You know, in essence.
It can't be for any new addition to the existing historic. It has to be within the historic part of the building.
Right, so what this is trying to kind of leave the flexibility
You
for.
can't add a room on the back of it
And
and
call
say, hey, I did my thing.
Right, but maybe you might be able to, per this, you know, and it would be at the discretion of the board, if you're saying that, you know, more current standard is to have a master suite. A lot of these houses may not have had a master suite. They may have had a bath down the hall. If you were to make some exterior adjustments to accommodate that, that might be possible, but adding like a whole additional room to the back of the property.
With that in mind, who makes the review? Is it the design review board once they get the drawings to assess that, yes, this is a legit historical renovation?
Correct. Yeah, so a detailed list of improvements goes to the design review board for a pre-certification. Usually that even involves a walkthrough if it has a high level of interior items. Think like kitchen remodel, you can add up a lot of costs fairly quickly, for instance. And they would then, once the work is finished, certify the valuation and the work done. And that's when essentially the freeze is placed on the taxable valuation of the house or property.
Yes.
So before we make a motion on this, can we correct a typo in the?
You're talking about makes?
No, oh, is that one?
I see one too, make possible.
Is designed is repeated in the first sentence of 3-434.
The only thing, Exhibit A, now the only thing we're doing is Exhibit A.
Yeah, but you still can't.
Where are you?
Fix, right here on the front.
Right under description.
First sentence.
Under the first.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, yeah, we can correct that. But on Exhibit A, there is the makes is plural, it should be singular. In other words, improvements outside of but directly attached to the historic building which make possible and efficient contemporary use while preserving. Maybe makes, I don't know. Improvements, make. Improvements is the subject, make is the verb.
Make.
I'd use make, but
You better go with Susan.
that's pretty technical.
You better go with Susan.
It could be any improvement which makes, or it's improvements which make.
Improvements may, and improvements is plural. Okay. Anybody further questions? Discussion is just a clarification of, it seems to be appropriate to me, so.
We're sending this back to the design review board, correct?
We're gonna make a motion to approve it. I assume somebody will make it.
Your recommendation will be, you know, to city council on this. So the recommendation came from the design review board to the planning commission, and then your recommendation will then be forwarded to city council.
Mr. Chairman, with reference to the amendment to special tax assessment for historic properties in the city code of Aiken, I move that we send this to city council for their approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Consideration and approval.
Everybody in favor? Everybody opposed? Good, okay.
The language.
So passed.
We'll make the Scrivener's.
Correction, Scrivener's error. All right, item 5, you got any comments on that one, Ryan?
This is essentially, it's modernizing, let me go back. Amendment to the Old Aiken Design Guidelines. The Old Aiken Design Guidelines generally, they would deal with the Old Aiken overlay. Particularly of interest here is the downtown area and commercial businesses in the Old Aiken area. What this would allow for is some flexibility. Currently, a business is allowed no more than 50% of the area of a window to be covered with either individual logos or lettering placed only on the interior of the surface. I think at the time that had to do with mostly the quality of window graphics, essentially, that they weren't quite as, the standards weren't quite as high for those sorts of durability issues at that time. So this is recognizing a couple things. One, that it could be an exterior application. It also wants to, or the board wanted to allow some flexibility that if you're trying to use a window graphic that's appropriate and that doesn't detract from the architectural significance of a building, that you can use such graphics to screen areas where you might want some privacy. A good example is down here at the end where the USC Aiken had taken over the interior kind of portion of the building on the corner for some classroom space, and that you might not want somebody looking in the big picture windows when a class is in there. So therefore, that there's not a whole lot of architectural distinction to that. It might be possible then to allow a screening into that to view in, that sort of thing.
So you're adding the yellow?
You're adding the yellow. The yellow is
Everything in
being
yellow
added.
is being added?
Correct.
Yeah,
All right.
we do that at the thrift shop too. We have those things where you can see out, but you can't see in.
Correct, yeah. So this would allow some flexibility to do those things. Again, we would try to limit it to no more than 50% of the area. So again, to leave some clear visibility between space. We, generally, it doesn't promote, covering an entire window, but might allow some flexibility depending on the signage and again, the kind of the architectural nature and aesthetic of the building as a whole.
We're
Okay.
going to keep it at 50%, or we're going to let them go beyond it?
So this allows an exception to that 50%. The recommended change would allow exception to that 50%. It allows that flexibility if it makes sense
Would it still
in
go
the
back to
context
the
of that building.
design review board, would look at each one?
Correct.
Yeah, they'd have to approve it.
They still have to approve it?
Still have to approve it.
Right, so the way this would function essentially is that if somebody was going over the 50%, if it's under the 50%, it falls under like an administrative review that I and the design review board chair would have the authority to look at it. What this kind of clarifies is that if you go above and beyond that, it would be at the discretion of the board. So it kind of does have a little bit more of a level of review in that sense, that if you were to try to go over that 50%.
Okay.
Is the reason this is being brought forward is because of the USC Aiken building, or the logos?
That's one of the reasons, yeah. But it's been,
I remember it was part of the conversation.
that was part of the conversation, but in general, there has been a larger interest in using window graphics downtown in general. So the design review board thought it might be pertinent to clean up that section of the ordinance.
So we have a motion to approve this change.
Sure, I'll make that motion to the amendments to the old Aiken design guidelines for window signs that we recommend to council to go forth with this memorandum and the guidelines indicated in this.
Second. All right. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, good, passed. Number 6, you got any comment on that one?
Just quickly, what this would do is pursuant to state code, variances are supposed to go through the BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals, or Board of Zoning Adjustments, depending on what you have in your city. We had a section, again, that you heard recently where a variance to the land subdivision regulations came through the Planning Commission, and that was still included in the code. This would send that to the BZA as well and be based upon the same criteria that they look at for any other application.
Somehow that Two Trees got involved because it was some land out there, so
And there were some political things, I'll say it on the record right now, and there were some people that were not happy with decisions that were made, so.
Yeah, but this does make it cleaner.
Lines with state code.
Well, and in staff's, just in staff's general opinion, and it's nothing against the board, but you don't hear a variance type case typically.
No.
As a board.
No.
That is a board that does hear them consistently. That is one of their sole jobs. So
right.
In that sense, it seems to make sense that they would, I guess, be more geared toward hearing that sort of thing. So.
Right. Yeah, I think it makes a difference. I wondered why we were hearing it, and then I went, until I found the technicality in there. But I think we, just again on the record, I think our decision was excellently done. Okay, motion. Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to land development regulations regarding the variances and move forward towards council.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? 2. All right, 5, you got the number? Okay, we got motion for adjournment.
Sure.
Second? Sure. All in favor?